Hey there, welcome to Bandit's Keep. I'm Daniel, and we're going to get back to the Mega Dungeon. A lot of you guys have been asking about this, so we're going to do level 2 now. If this is your first video that you're seeing the Mega Dungeon, I'll kind of talk a little bit about level 1, but there's a bunch of videos. I'll put a link. So you guys, somewhere, you'll see a link, and definitely in the description. In any case, I'm drawing it using my iPad, so you'll see me pop back and forth over here, and we're using the BX rules, which is Basic Expert. It's been recently, repopularized, I'll say, by OSE. So if you're using OSE, then you're basically using the same system. I like to use the original rules. I like the way they're written. I like the way they're laid out. I know the new one has a really beautiful modern layout, but there's just some certain touches in this that I really like. So we're going to use those books, and we're going to go through them. They are available on TTRPG because people have asked me that. I'll put links in the description. I'll find them for you. But it's not the BECME, not the whatever. It's BX. But anyways, I'll put links. So let's jump over to my iPad, and we'll take a look. All right, so there we go. All right, so this is level 1. Now, level 1, we decided to do mostly kind of traps and tricks and weirdness, and it was real fun. We built it up over the course of several videos. This one's gonna be a little simpler. I did a poll, and it seems like a lot of you guys were in favor of cultists, and the second favorite was undead, and then there was a lot of this combination stuff, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But actually, let's talk about that now while I'm thinking of it. So a lot of people in the comments made ideas where they gave like all these connections between many different levels. Like, oh, on level 2, you use this, and then level 5, you do this, and on level 7, you do this. That's cool. You can definitely do a Mega Dungeon like that. That is not how I want to do it. I'm kind of going after the original, if you will, feel of the kind of not fully connected mythic underworld. There'll be some overlap, of course, but there's not a plot on level 2 that's going to be fulfilled on level 9 in this. But my idea here is that each of these levels basically stands on its own. And yes, like I said, you can have some overlap. It'll make sense. But at the same time, you don't need to have run any of the other levels for this level to make sense. It should be its own thing with its own interesting stuff. And I find this is better, in my opinion, for Mega Dungeons, because these massive Mega Dungeons that have a single theme that I've played in and seen and read, they can tend to get boring after a while as far as mechanically. Now, obviously, if you have a great group and role play and all sorts of stuff, that's great. I'm not saying that. I'm sure you can tell me in the comments. I'm sure a lot of people have run like things like Barrow Maze and Stonehill. That's the other one. Those are awesome. The big swords and wizard ones. Anyways, there's a rap and something. There's a lot of really great Mega Dungeons. Not saying there's not. But I feel like unless you're going to have a group that's really going to embrace it, having a single theme through the entire Mega Dungeon doesn't really work. Also, if it sets this thing up that you get a lot in modern gaming, which I'm trying to avoid with this. I'm trying to go really old school with this, which is this like the characters of these heroes that have to get all the way to the end. Because if the quest is at the bottom and they've got to start at the top, then you're looking at the thing. These are dungeon delvers. They might only go 1 or 2 levels. They might go all the way down. They might skip levels. It doesn't matter. Each one is its own thing. So that's kind of where I'm coming at. I mean, if you've got reasons that you think that's not a good idea or you do things differently, obviously let's chat about it because I love to have the conversation. But that's my direction here, just so you get the idea. That being said, I'm going to do kind of a little tie-in thing. So not 100%, but a little bit, because I do think that's a good idea. And I've mentioned this before in other videos. Whenever I find something that I don't really do, but then people suggest, I like to try it because I like to see how other people do things. So let's get back to the Mega Dungeon. Okay, so this is level 1. There's a few areas over here that we already set up. Whenever you're doing your dungeon, you want to set up ways to get down to the next level, right? Your Mega Dungeon. So if we look, again, I'm in Procreate here. If we look right here in this area, number 6, and also in number 7, coincidentally, those are both entrances to the second level. So we drew that in. I didn't have the second level figured out yet, but we knew we'd need entrances. So 6 is basically a statue that you need to do a special thing to. You got to give the statue a rose, and it will open up a secret door, which leads to a staircase, and also a whole other part of this dungeon over like a side area, if you will. And then, so you can almost call that 1.5 floor. And then in 7, there's basically a reverse ziggurat that drops down, and there's a door at the bottom. And at the bottom, you fight undead that keep coming back day after day. See how we're tying in here a little bit? So effectively, number 7 in level 1 is actually on level 2. So what I did here, and I think this is important, however you're going to do this, there's lots of different ways to do this. And this is not professional mapping software. It's just a drawing program. Get rid of that little markup level. If we look at level 2 that I've drawn so far, this is basically level 2. So I'm already connecting them, right? This way we've got our connection to level 1, level 2. You always want to have multiple ways to get down there. Now, on top of that, there's also an area in level 1 where it's like a teleporter, basically a mirror. We kind of gone back and forth about that. I think that's actually going to drop you lower than level 2. I haven't decided yet, so we're going to leave that as it is. It's not a particular way to go, at least for now. So I'm going to clear off level 1 so we don't see it anymore. And let's take a second to talk about this level before we do the map. All right, so like I said, a lot of people were in favor of cultists, and there was this undead thing going on, and also because I had created this room in number 7 where the undead respawn, I thought this could be really interesting, right? So I just want to talk about monsters for a minute because I get a few questions about this, and what I'm trying to do in each one of these videos, by the way, is kind of highlight one part of it, and then we'll probably like gloss over some of the others, some of the other stuff. That way the videos aren't tremendously long. So anyways, by the way, I do record pretty much the entire thing, so if people have questions about other parts of it, I could always pull them back up. But forgetting about that for a second, how do I decide what monsters to put? How do I know if they're balanced or if they're working? And I know somebody's writing right now, you don't have to balance encounters. The expert book does talk about you want to kind of make sure things are balanced to your players. So that's from 1981. So I don't know, you might not have played that way, but BX tells you to have some kind of a balance. That doesn't mean that you can't have overwhelming odds sometimes, but it does mean that you have to think about who's going to be adventuring here. D&D, old school D&D, like dungeon building, is it's very much like, and I believe this is where they were inspired by this. It's very much like some of these like video games, right? Where like you're going from level to level, it gets more difficult. That's how it's designed, and the players, I should say, need to be able to rely on that on some level. There can be surprises, but they should know, hey, this is a staircase down. It's going to be more dangerous, and they can make the choice whether or not they want to do that. It's their choice to do that. That is the player agency. So if you have terribly powerful monsters on level 2, then weak monsters on level 3, and then even weaker monsters on level 8, like that kind of doesn't make sense. So you need to kind of build yourself down. So how do you decide what to put there? Okay, so what I do, and I think works pretty well, is I'm going to show you my display here. We are here in the basic book, so Moldvade Basic, the book, and we can see that there is a chart in here on B53. It starts there, that are wandering monsters. So if you were creating a generic dungeon on the fly for your friends, and you just wanted to like roll as you went, if you were on level 1 of the dungeon, these are the things that you would roll. So if we look at these monsters, we can say and again, a level 1 dungeon is more or less for a level 1 party, right? So we can look at all this and say, any one of these monsters, we should still feel pretty safe in having them appear, en masse, like as they would normally appear. We can look at these numbers of wandering monsters and say, wow, 1 to 4 green slimes, or 3 to 18 halflings, right? So 4 to 16 kobolds. So that's all fine on level 1. That feels fine. If you want to get like a tougher monster to make it kind of stick out and make it a little tougher, maybe if you want to do kind of like a final room or a boss type thing, if that's how you want to do, what I generally do is just go to the next level. So I'll come down and go, okay, well, what's a level 2 monster? So I might go, okay, so if I'm on level 1 of my dungeon, for my main monster I'm going to have them fight, I will choose to pick, let's say, lizard men, or a lizard man, possibly, depending on the thing, because they are a little tougher. This is if you're going with a smaller group. If you're a group, then you know how many there are. If I tend to go 2 levels down if I can, so what I would probably do for a quote boss would be a 3rd level monster. So I'd pick like a were-rat, right? So you could have a were-rat as just one of them, right, as your main monster on that as your kind of boss, right? Say the were-rat is the head of that level. They're the most powerful monster on that level, and then everything else you're encountering on that level is pretty much going to be in this area, right? So you got some goblins running around. They're all scared, or they work for the were-rat. You can do whatever you want, but effectively, there's probably giant rats in the side. You'll notice if there's giant rats in BX. So rarely use them. I think there are actually. They don't put them as wandering monsters, but they do giant shrews, which is pretty cool. So anyways, you could have giant rats. You could do all these other things and make that work, right? So so that's basically the easy answer is I look for a monster that is of the level, based on the wandering monsters, of the characters, that will generally be the main monster, or these monsters will be the main monsters that are floating around, and then something a little bit more powerful as kind of like a challenge monster. So, with all that being said, and with the conversations we've been having, and with all this, I looked and I said, well, what is a tough undead monster? Let's say that this is a group of cultists, and they are going to be worshipping or somehow doing something with something undead. Well, the toughest undead monster in BX is the white. So the white is 3 hit dice. I'm going to find it here. The white's 3 hit dice, and it does level drain. It can only be hit by magic weapons, so it's pretty tough. However, me being me, I generally think of the white as something that is like a wandering monster that is just a crazy, like, oh my god, we should run from this wandering monster. Not usually something that I may make as a main monster. I don't know why it just doesn't fit there, although I did do an individual adventure with a white, so I didn't even do the thing I would say. But if we look at white, that's the wrong one. We look at the white, we can see here that they are armor class 5, which is not tremendously hard. They're 3 hit dice. They move 90, so they're pretty good. They have energy drain, so this is a pretty tough creature. You could do a white as the main monster. However, if because this is a mega dungeon, and because of, again, some of this conversation we've been having about kind of interconnecting the levels, I decided that since the players are going to go up and down, that I'm going to put a tougher monster here that they just won't be able to get access to, probably. Now, if they are very, very clever, and they can figure out a way to get into the space where the monster is, they will be able to interact with it. However, my plan is to make it so that this monster is basically not going to be something the player characters can get near on this level. It's going to be something that the cultists worship. It's going to give power to this level, but they won't actually be able to get near. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make the tomb completely enclosed, right? And what I'm going to put in here is, this is from the expert book, so I'm actually jumping up to the expert book, which is, we're cheating a little bit here. I believe what I want to do here is go with, actually, let me do this instead. I'm going to go with not a vampire. There was that moment where I was thinking, vampire. In fact, I think people even said vampires are great boss monsters because they're smart, and they have all this other stuff going on. The issue with the vampire here is that you want to interact with the vampire, right? The vampire is going to want to, that's the fun of a vampire, is this interaction with it. It's not just to fight something or whatever. And if the vampire was here and it was actually making cultists do stuff, it would likely be coming out and drinking blood and doing all that stuff. So I don't think a vampire thematically works. Also, power-wise, it doesn't work. Because if the player characters do happen to figure out a way to get into this area and get to this monster, they're 7 to 9 hit dice. So even if I was to use them at 7 hit dice, that's pretty darn powerful. They do a d10 damage plus energy drain. And a vampire drains 2 levels. They have an automatic charm. They do all kinds of stuff. Vampires, they regenerate. Vampires are nothing to mess with. No joke, I guess is what I'm saying. But there's another really powerful undead monster in the expert book that I really love, and it's one of my favorite monsters, and I think it actually works well for this. And that is the mummy. Let me come over here and find it. Mummy. Okay. Mummies are 3 armor class 3, so they're pretty hard to hit. They are 5+1 hit dice, so you could beat a mummy if you're a second level party, if you're very clever. They move a little bit slow, right? They're only 60 movements, so as slow as a plate mail armor person, so people can run from it. But they have a touch that does a d12, so that is pretty deadly, and it causes disease, but no level drain. Because again, to a first and second level party who's going to come down here, level drain is going to wipe them out. A vampire level drain on second level kills you. So basically, if a vampire hits you, you are instantly dead if you're second level, right? So the mummy won't do that. Instead, it has this kind of disease that makes it so you can't heal. It takes 10 times as long to heal. It lasts until it's magically cured, that kind of stuff. So it gives another quest, right? They can only be damaged by spells, fire, or magic weapons. So again, they're also not too easy to beat. They're pretty tough. They all do those things only do half damage, and they're immune to a bunch of spells. So a mummy is a very, very tough bad guy. And a mummy is also something that could be in a tomb. So it could be something that could be worshipped. Could be something that, if you think about the lore and stuff, it could have some kind of power. So I'm thinking mummy. And you could flavor this mummy up. We're not actually going to use it yet because, well, I'll put just mummy here for now. But when we get to the level where we actually want to have the mummy be encountered, maybe by then we'll start messing with it, because we could make our own version of a BX Lich with a mummy, right? Just by adding some levels of magic user. If we make him a 5th level magic user, because it's 5 hit dice, that could be really interesting. Of course, no fireballs, because, mummy would never want to throw a fireball. So that's going to be the basis here. There's going to be a cult that's going to be based around this mummy, and this mummy is going to be the thing that's generating the power. So let's jump to our map for a second while we're thinking of this. Since this is 7 from level 1, right? This is where the undead's coming back. What we're going to do here is we're going to actually draw a room next to it, because you can put it up below it too, but then it wouldn't be on this level. So I'm going to put it right next to it. I'm going to put a chamber. This room is going to have no entrance from this level. It's basically going to be 100% sealed. It's going to be sealed with possibly some kind of maybe a wizard lock, right? Because your wizard lock spell is going to block out anybody coming through. And that's going to make it so that if there's a door at all here, we'll make it a wizard lock. So nobody can get through unless they're high level or they have a knock spell. And in order to have a knock spell, you'd have to be at least 3rd level, right? Because that's a 2nd level spell. So let's take a quick look over here. We'll go back. Again, I'm going to go back to the BX book. Again, I'm in BX because what I'm doing here is I'm getting my, if you will, plot. I hate to use that word, but plot ready, right? I'm figuring out what's actually here. So let's look at spells. If we go to, am I in the expert book? Really look at the basic book. All right, let's go here. And we're going to go spells. We're going to go magic user spells. Here, I'm going to take a look, right? So, I don't even see wizard. Oh, wizard lock. Wizard lock is a 2nd level spell. It is also is knock. So let's take a look at it. Make sure it does what I think it does. But obviously, you can always change spells to work. It is permanent, which works for us. Spell is similar to Hold Portal, but it may be used on anything with a lock. So there's a door. It will last forever. The wizard lock can be opened by the caster, or by a knock spell without destroying the wizard lock. A portal which has been wizard locked may be passed through without any use of a spell by any magic user 3 or more levels greater than the caster of the wizard lock. So we're going to say that the wizard just, the mummy, right? Whoever put it in there is going to be high levels. So that's not going to be an issue. Let's take a quick look at Hold Portal. So we're not even going to put a lock on this door. It's just going to be a door they can't open, right? And spell will magically hold shut a door, gate, or similar portal. A knock 2nd level spell will open a Hold Portal. And okay, so again, you can't. Now it does say a creature of 3 hit dice or more greater than the caster may break open the held portal in 1 round. But that's it. Otherwise, you can't get through the door, right? So we're going to put a portal here that's going to be wizard locked. So I'm going to name this room number 1, even though it's not going to be. Back to the iPad. Even though it's not going to be a room that people probably will get into. And I'm just going to go over my my little notes here, just make sure I note that down. So room number 1 is going to be, actually, I'm going to make it room number, let's make it a high number that we're not going to use. Let's say room number 13, right? Because that's a mummy, right? So room number 13, lucky 13, is going to be mummy, wizard locked, no lock, no wizard locked, stone portal. And that wizard lock stone portal is going to be no entry without magic. And again, we're going to flavor this up with some text that says there's signs and drawings on it and stuff. But so now we'll figure out where the doorway is. But basically, that's what we got. So that's 13. Okay. So now we know why and how the magic is down here. Now we need the cultists. And my first thought with the cultists was, well, cultists, right? Normal humans. They come and they join a cult or whatever. But this is a 2nd level of dungeon. Normal humans is going to be kind of really easy for the player characters to destroy. Maybe they'll feel bad about it. So I want a bit of a challenge. So I'm going to come back down to Wandering Monsters and take a look and see who the cultists might be, right? Let's see. Okay, so this is the 2nd level Wandering Monsters. Let's take a look here and see what could work. Beetle oil, clearly not, right? Berserkers. Bam. Berserkers are 1+1 hit die. They're only armor class 7, so they're not too hard to hit, but they're fast. And of course, Berserkers go berserk, right, when they fight, and that's really cool because if they're cultists, maybe they're like, they get when they want to fight. So I think that might be a really good option. But just scanning down, you could do a monstrous humanoid race, or whatever you want to call it. You could do hobgoblins. You could do lizardmen, I guess would work. I probably wouldn't do Neanderthals. That doesn't seem to make sense. Although I could see Neanderthals worshipping some kind of idol, that actually could really work. And Neanderthal is another good option. Huh. I was going to say, I don't know if I see them wandering around in a dungeon, but we're going to talk about that in a second. So I'm not sure if I should do Neanderthals or Berserkers. Neanderthals would be really cool because that's like they haven't left and they've been in here. But Berserkers are kind of like people who have gone there to join the cult, which I kind of like better. So we might actually do a mix. So I'm going to make a note here. And in fact, this could work out well for faction play, right? Because what we can do is we can have them kind of, intermixed. Maybe the original cultists were these Neanderthals, and then whoever's running the cult or kind of convinced these Neanderthals to allow these Berserkers, these new people to join because they know they want fresh people in their cult. And I already had an idea of who I wanted to run the cult because this is a monster that's been talked about a bit in the Audio Dungeon Discord, and I thought it would be a cool way to use one, and that is a doppelganger. So, you've got a doppelganger, which is pretty tough, right? A doppelganger is, I'll leave it on. Yeah, they're right. Remember, I was just saying, if you go one level above and you look for a monster, right? Because remember, this is the monster they're actually going to probably fight. They're not going to fight the mummy. So a doppelganger is, it's AC 5. It's 4 hit dice, but I believe they can only be hit by magic. They've, obviously they're immune to like sleep and charm and stuff, so it gives them that little extra. So what I'm thinking here is a doppelganger infiltrated this Neanderthal group and got them convinced to start worshiping this like idol, these signs, these cave paintings, effectively to the Neanderthals, right? And then what happened is then the doppelganger was like, well, I need to bring in more people because I got to keep feeding and stuff, right? So they've been like recruiting people. They've been leaving and coming back and that kind of stuff. In the guise of the Neanderthal chief. They keep coming back as the Neanderthal chief. So they've got this group, and they're kind of working the two groups to kind of building them together, but also keeping them a little bit, apart. And, so there's a little bit of dissent there. So I kind of like this idea. So now we've got your doppelganger as your main kind of bad guy, and that's a little plot people can figure out. You've got Neanderthals, you've got Berserkers, okay? So those are going to be our main monsters for this level that we're going to place. The other thing we can do now is we can look at the level 2 wandering monsters, and we can see what else we might want. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually pick a handful so we can make our wandering monster list. Let's see. Oil beetles is not a bad idea. Ghouls. I don't necessarily want a lot of undead running around that's going to mess with our cultists, right? The undead that are here because, the undead part of it is the mummy. So I'm going to avoid the ghouls. However, gnolls, no, they wouldn't really mix in here unless they were traveling in. A gray ooze might be interesting. So I'm going to make a note of this. So beetle, oil. I like in dungeon crawls to have my wandering monsters be a lot of times not be intelligent, because then you've got to, unless they're the main dissonance of the floor. So basically you could say like you've got your oozes and stuff, which reminds me that I should add green slime, which of course is a level 1 monster, but that's fine, right? We can mix up a little bit. Lizard, Draco, maybe hobgoblins if they're invading you got to think about what might be here. Pixies, definitely not. There's no reason why pixies would be here. Robber flies could be interesting because there could be dead bodies. Rock baboons make a lot of sense because they are actually held as pets by the Neanderthals. Okay. And snake pit viper. Ooh, black widow spider, maybe. It would have to be, because remember, there's a spider nest on the first floor if you've seen those videos. So it could be that the spider could wander down here. So I'll say spider, black widow. Maybe more. Some of the baby spiders might have wandered down here and then bred, and then they got the thing. Troglodytes, no. Veterans, no, unless I want to have people down here, which would have other adventurers. But I will do zombies. And the reason why I'll do that is because in room 7, I say that anybody dying there will come back as a zombie or whatever if they're left there. So effectively, adventurers who die might wander this way and come into this floor. So you may have some zombies wandering around. So that now gives us green slime, oil beetles, so that's one, gray ooze, rock baboons, pit vipers, spider, black widow, zombies. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we've got the Neanderthals themselves. That's 8. The Berserkers are 9. The Doppelganger is 10. If you do a 2d6 wandering monster table, we need 11, basically. So let's come up. I mean, if we can have up to 11, I should say. I'm going to look at level 1 and see if there's anything up here that I like. Besides the green slime. I mean, you could do fire beetles, I guess. Nothing inspires me. Let's put something tough down here. Let's go to level 3. Hold on, I think I might be wrong about the rock baboons. I'm going to go back for a second and look at that. It might be white apes that are with Neanderthals. But let's just look at, I could do a carrion crawler. That would be, pretty dangerous down here, but not impossible, or an ochre jelly. Again, I like the idea of, I'm going to roll. I'm going to roll this D12. If I get a 7 through 12, it'll be ochre jelly. If I get 1 through 6, it'll be carrion crawler. 12. All right, so it's gonna be ochre jelly. Ochre jelly. It automatic. That's so funny. The autocorrect. Even though I spelled ochre right, it changed it to care jelly. So apparently, care jelly is a thing that the computer thinks is. All right, so let's just take a quick look here to make sure that we're on the track here. We've got, as I said, rock baboons. I thought those were the ones that were with the Neanderthals, but if they're not, I'm going to change it to the white apes. So let's go back to our monsters. And again, I'm in here. Yeah, it's white apes that are with the Neanderthals. Let me just look at rock baboons to see what their deal is. It'd be cool if they were made out of rocks, but I have a feeling they're not. Are they under baboon rock? No, they're probably under. So we're going to go down to the rock baboons, and we're going to see if they seem better suited. NPC party is also a thing. That could be at any level, I suppose. All right, rock baboon. Or class 6, hit dice 2. The larger version of normal baboons, they're more intelligent. They'll eat anything but for meat. They don't make tools or weapons, but pick up bones and branches of rock baboons, form packs led by dominant male. They have ferocious tempers. They do not speak a true language, but use simple screams to communicate. Yeah, I don't know. I could see that, but that's not really what I want. So I'm going to put white apes down here. All right, so actually, white apes are pretty tough. Okay, so what we're going to do here is, let me actually do this. Let's see if I can do this where you guys can see it. Look at my little notebook over here. This is just a text document for now. Well, it's a word processor document. Read that, right? Yeah, make it a little bigger. Okay, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to take a quick look at our wandering monsters, and I'm basically going to I'm going to kind of make a quick list. And the way that I'll do this is I'm going to take the most common monster, right? So when we do a 2d6 list, we got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So we know that the most common thing that gets rolled on a 2d6 is a 7. So what's the most common thing we should run into? One of the things that's the most common, right? So we're going to say that's going to be either I'll say Berserker. Okay. And then I'll put Neanderthals for number 6. Now, the other thing I want to consider is the toughness of the monsters, right? So we know that ochre jelly and white apes are actually quite tough. So I'm going to actually put those in the hardest positions to roll. So ape, white, and jelly. No, I don't have a comma there. Okay, so now we know that. I'm going to erase these as we go. Where's the white? I guess I already did. Okay. Oh, there it is. Okay, so now I can put them in any order I want, to be honest with you. What I'll probably do is I think that an encounter with the doppelganger should also be fairly rare because it's only the one person. So I'll put that at 3. Also fairly tough because of poison and such. Black Widow Spider. Put that there. And again, I'm just using my judgment here as to what I think is the most likely, things they'll run into. Go and you know, and again, I'm also making a judgment based on things that are like, again, Pit Viper's got save or die poison, so I don't want to necessarily make that. Actually, I'll put that on this side. I don't want to make that something that they're going to encounter too frequently because it can be dangerous, even if they're not very many hit dice. Okay, we're going to go like this. I'm going to go again. I don't want too many undead down here. And I don't know why it's working out this way, but I'm going to put the 2. If you roll at 8 or 9, you're going to get slimed, basically. All right. So this is now my wandering monster list, and also these are going to be the monsters primarily that I'm going to place on the level, right? I'm not going to add, I don't think, any other monsters besides these. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in here and draw myself a bit of a map. I assume that this was some kind of a strange tomb. Again, this mummy's been entrapped here, but it could have been for any number of reasons. This is a mega dungeon. It can be anything against like underworld stuff. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to go in and we're going to just kind of draw what I think will be a nice basic map, and we'll change it up. There is one thing I want to add right at the beginning, though. One thing I definitely want to add right away is another way in. And you might be thinking, well, you got 2 ways in already. Isn't that enough? It could be, but also remember that I'm saying this cave was a Neanderthal cave. So how did they get in? And I'm certainly thinking they're not crawling in and out of the dungeon and like, being in the position to like, figure out the traps to get here, right? Because Neanderthals are considered like maybe, in this game anyways, considered maybe less intelligent kind of things. So we want to have another way in, probably some kind of cave entrance. So I'm just going to put it down at the bottom. It doesn't actually matter where. I'm just picking randomly where I want to put it. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it's going to be on the right level as it is sometimes. It's going to be something that's fairly long as far as an entrance. So this is going to go exit. Just so I remember what that is. Okay, and that's good. Now what I want to do is start, and the simplest way that I'm going to do this is just start from the ways that people come in, and we'll kind of interconnect it. All right, well, the map took me a little bit longer than I thought, and I kept tweaking it a little bit, so I decided that just was not going to be something I wanted to show, so we can cut right to here. I did a couple other things while I kind of cut away. I'll show you the map in a second, but I also went in and I determined the basic numbers for the monsters and also their treasure. So let's take a quick look at all these things, then we'll start putting it together. So let's look at the map first. Okay, so I've got this all figured out, and what I'm going to actually do here is have this broken down into effectively 3 areas. There's an area going to be here. There's an area that's going to be basically, let's see, this part. If I did that right, that's going to be more or less the Neanderthals. This part over here is going to be more or less the Berserkers. Okay. And this other area here, which I think is really interesting, this is where that secret passageway came down, and I thought, you know what? Maybe this will be a random area, or we'll put like nothing in here. We'll try to fill this one using just the basic rules. So I'm going to kind of leave that for last, and we'll go from there. So a couple things I already wrote in here. Number 1, I put in where the level 1, if I'm looking to the side a lot, guys, because I'm looking at my iPad, the level 1 room 7, I put that in. Right above that, I have that 13, right? Because that's where I decided that was room 13. I also made a couple notes. All my notes are basically in red here. Level 3, that means it's going to level 3. That's actually a slanted passageway. We'll talk about the dungeon as we go through it. Actually, let's talk about that now. So this is a sloping passageway. I put these arrows in here. Let me blow it up for you guys. So this is a sloping passageway. You know, dwarves and stuff can detect that stuff. It's a way to get them to level 3, and they don't know it. Right, a little tricky, even though I said that characters should know. This is, again, it's a trick or a trap, if you will, where it's going to bring them to a lower level, possibly without them realizing, or possibly if your players figure it out, then they'll know that's the way down, right? The other way to get to level 3 that I have in here is a shaft that's going to drop down there. And that's going to go to 3 and 4. So they're going to have 2 ways down. I may try to put another way down to level 3 somewhere. I haven't decided yet, because I feel like that's a little trickier, but of course I also don't want it to be too hard to get to level 3. And remember, I'm keeping these relatively small. This one's actually bigger than the floor above. But it's level 2. We want to make sure there's enough treasure and stuff to get them leveled up. Speaking of treasure, let's take a quick look at that. Okay, so I went through this and I got the wandering monsters written up. I decided that the ape white, I would just do one if they encountered it. I didn't use the number that's in the book because they are a 4 hit die creature. So, they're meant from the level below. So if they hit one of those, they'll do that. The doppelganger is the cult leader. He could appear as either a berserker or a Neanderthal, depending on his vibe. Snake pit viper. Oops, I didn't put that in yet. How many appear there? So let's do a quick. Let's fill that in. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to go to the basic book. And I'm just going to kind of go down to the wandering monsters and snake. Pit viper is right. Can you guys see? Can you see level 2? Yep. Let's see. That's 1 to 8 of those. Wow, that's a lot of snakes. Okay. So 1 to 8 pit viper snakes could possibly be there. And again, these are random monsters, wandering monsters, whatever you want to call them. So they're not really going to affect the dungeon itself. But if you notice, number 1, I put from dungeon population because I'm going to list a certain number of them, which I haven't done yet. And the doppelganger, obviously, there's only one of them. And then you see also down here, Neanderthal from dungeon population, berserker from dungeon population. So these are locals. So if you kill them off as a wandering monster, then, that you won't have to fight them later. Then we get the zombies. I basically took all these numbers from the book. Easy as that, right? I'm giving a full layer of Neanderthals, so 40 of them, and they come in groups of 1 to 10, because that's their wandering monster thing. Their treasure type is C, I think it was, which I rolled up. I used actually the OSC generator to make it quick. They got 3,000 copper pieces, a bunch of jewelry, a potion of levitation, spell scroll, and you might be thinking, why do Neanderthals have this? We'll talk about that in a second. I want to make a note here that they have white apes. I'm not going to make that many white apes here because, again, they're pretty powerful. But let's take a quick look to see how many white apes would possibly appear. Go back again to the basic book. And we'll scroll up to the white apes, which is the beginning of the monsters. Unfortunately, this PDF is not bookmarked to the actual pages of the monsters. I don't know why the expert one is. Maybe I keep saying this. I should go drive through and see if I have the latest version. There's a total of 2 to 8 in a layer, but these guys don't add any extra treasure, and they actually just add a lot of, problems. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make it be the average. So that's 5. So we'll make 5 of those total. And of course they're pets to the Neanderthals. So that means that if the Neanderthals fall, then most likely they'll just be gone. Like, we're not going to worry about them. They won't chase the party down after if the Neanderthals pass, end up getting killed or run off by the party. Okay, let me get back to where I was. Okay, all right. So we'll put that in. 8 white, 5 total, and they can be. Let's see. We'll say there's a 25% chance with a group. All right, so this way, there's, you can encounter them. All right, so there we go. Now, actually, maybe I'll make 4 total because there's 40 Neanderthals, and that makes actually more sense. So there's 1 with every 10. So again, they've got this treasure, blah, blah. Berserkers, there's 30 of them total. They come in groups of 1 to 6. I rolled their treasure, and what I found here was a bunch of jewelry, which is good, makes it a lot easier for the characters anyways to log all that out. And the doppelganger, though, got a bunch of treasure. Doppelganger's got 8,000 gold pieces, an arrow, sword +2, wand, and a treasure map. And I think doppelgangers, let's take a quick look at this. I actually didn't look, but I believe that they're usually on their own. If they're not, we're going to have to do a little math. Remember, we've talked about this before. If you roll up a treasure and you have less than the maximum number, then you want to adjust your treasure accordingly, or you should adjust it. I may not adjust it down too much because I want to make sure there's enough treasure on this level for the party. There could be 1 to 6 of them. So, I'm gonna actually, because I feel like there's not that much magic on this level, and there's a lot of jewelry and stuff. I think I'm gonna cut down the gold and leave the magic items. I'm gonna leave some gold, but not all of it. So, part of the reason for that as well is because I've already said that when the Berserker's got his sword, when the Berserker is when the Doppelganger is in the form of the Berserker, he's going to have the +2 sword. So that could be a surprise. All right, so, I mean, I'll go 1,500 gold pieces here instead of... And then I'll leave everything else the same. I probably should get rid of one of the magic items. I don't want it to be the sword, so there's 3. So I'm going to actually roll a d6, and we'll just get rid of one of these magic items. 2, which would be the arrows. Okay, so we'll get rid of the arrows as well. And that'll balance us out. So now we've got I'm probably get a little bit more treasure than possibly maybe for the Doppelganger, but that's good. I want to give him most of the magic. And again, it's a wand of magic detection, which is very nice to have, and also a treasure map, which I already checked. Treasure map 1 leads to a magic item. So that's, again, more quest, more stuff going on. Could put it in the dungeon, could put it outside the dungeon. Kind of depends on how you want to run it. All right, so now we have that going. Let's go in and start doing our rooms. So we'll go to the map. This is getting very long, and I want to be able to take my time to place the monsters and get everything kind of perfect. So we're going to break this into 2 parts. What I'm going to do is I'm releasing this today, which is the 18th of January. I'm not going to make you wait a week because I normally release once a week. I'll release it tomorrow, the 19th. So I'm just going to finish editing the rest of it, and I will then put part 2 tomorrow, and I will put a card. So if you're watching this after the 19th, you can click on that to get to part 2, or I'll put it at the end. That way you'll have a direct link, and I'll put the link in the description, all that goodness. In any case, if you've got this far and you haven't already, go ahead, like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, do all that good stuff, and I will see you tomorrow.